cause I'm close to the edge. I'm trying not to lose my head. It's like a jungle sometimes, it makes me wonder how I keep from going under. It's like a jungle sometimes, it makes me wonder how I keep from going under.
There's enough information capacity in a single human cell to store the Encyclopedia Britannica, all 30 volumes of it, 3 or 4 times over. Richard Dawkins, Blind Watchmaker, page 116. Now this is what human cells look like under a very powerful microscope. Because we know that the Encyclopedia Britannica most certainly has many authors and editors, we can infer that information implies intelligence. So how does a naturalist like Richard Dawkins account for the information present in all known life? In Chapter 6 of The Blind Watchmaker, entitled Origins and Miracles, he again invokes the old Darwinist standby, luck. Page 139, he says, "We can accept a certain amount of luck in our explanations, but not too much. The question is, how much? The immensity of geological time entitles us to postulate more improbable coincidences than a court of law would allow. But, even so, there are limits." He then offers up the theory of cumulative selection as an explanation for the origin of this information. The luck comes in the form of random mutations, which he calls acceptably lucky events. He then concedes that the finished product of cumulative selection is far too improbable to have come about by chance alone, even given a time span millions of times longer than the age of the universe so far. Page 140. To get an idea of the type of probabilities we are talking about, consider Isaac Asimov's calculation of the probability of randomly assembling a hemoglobin molecule from amino acids. The molecule is made up of 4 chains of amino acids twisted together. Each chain consists of 146 amino acids, and there are 20 different choices. The possible permutation of arranging these 20 in a 146 link chain is 20 to the 146th power, which is approximately the same as 10 to the 190th power. Considering that the number of atoms in the observable universe is estimated at only 10 to the 80, one can see that invoking luck to explain the origin of life is patently absurd. Because of his naturalist bias, Dawkins presents his case emphasizing that there's a logical necessity that there be a linear path leading from the origin of life to man, each step favored by natural selection. However, this alleged necessity is only necessary to support the conjectures and assumptions of Darwinism. As biologist Francis Crick demands in his Lessons from Biology, biologists must constantly keep in mind that what they see was not designed, but rather evolved. Which begs the question, why must they constantly keep it in mind? Whatever happened to following the evidence where it leads? As an alternative to following the evidentiary design implications which he finds unpalatable, Dawkins offers up an example of monkeys typing a phrase and a solution by cumulative selection. On page 142 of The Blind Watchmaker. In order for a monkey to write, "Methinks it like a weasel" by chance, it needs a very large amount of luck, but it is still measurable. We calculated the odds against it is about 10,000 million, or 10 to the 40th power, to 1 against it. Nobody can really comprehend or imagine such a large number, and we think of this degree of improbability as synonymous with impossible. Why thank you, Professor Dawkins. Traditionally, Darwinists rely on millions of years to scale down the massive improbabilities for their conjectures. For the sake of entertaining the typing monkey to selection analogy, we need to incorporate the total number of attempts into our calculation. The probability for all the monkeys getting the wrong letter is 1 minus 1 times 27 to the 28th power. So in n attempts, the probability is 1 minus 1 times 27 to the 28th power, all to the n power. Of course, it follows mathematically that the probability for correct match is 1 minus that figure. So, to simulate the Darwinist favorite crutch, millions of years, we can give the value of n, the number of attempts, the value of 1 billion. But even with 1 billion attempts, the probability only reduces to 1 in 10 to the 31st power. A mountain of improbability, which is unlikely scaled, even with an enormous amount of time. So how does Dawkins propose to climb Mount Improbable? In this computer simulation of cumulative selection, you provide the phrase from Shakespeare's Hamlet, "Methinks it's like a weasel," to one part of the program, representing the boss monkey. We use a population size of 68 typing monkeys, as we are using a 68-character alphabet, including all the upper and lower case letters, plus digits and some punctuation marks. Then the part of the program representing the typing monkeys tries to please the boss monkey by typing possible solutions until it matches the target phrase. The typing monkeys start by randomly typing letters. Every time a monkey types a letter, the letter is compared to its target letter by the boss monkey. Attempts are scored by the number of correct letters. The highest scoring attempt is retained as the starting point for the next attempt. The monkeys continue to type until they find the original phrase. Now keep in mind, the boss monkey only knows the target because we told him by typing it in at the outset. In Darwinian terms, the typing monkeys represent chance. The comparison mechanism, or boss monkey, represents necessity. The proximity of the letter to its target represents its fitness. Now, to the naive observer, or to one with a vested interest in the philosophical implications of Darwinism, this might appear to be convincing evidence for the origin of biological information. Dawkins certainly presents it as such in The Blind Watchmaker. However, it is nothing more than circular reasoning wrapped up in a technological package with a Darwinian bow on it. In the thesis of The Blind Watchmaker, Richard Dawkins refutes William Paley's watchmaker analogy by saying, "Natural selection, the blind, unconscious, automatic process which Darwin discovered, and which we now know as the explanation for the existence and apparent purposeful form of all life, has no purpose in mind. It has no vision, no foresight, no sight at all." This can be found on page 14 of The Blind Watchmaker. When it comes time to demonstrate a plausible scenario for how biological information is generated, this typing monkey illustration obviously begs the question, by what mechanism is the comparison made? This comparison is a highly non-random process, which is only compounded by the next non-random step that calls for correct letters to be kept. The entire reason for this analogy was to demonstrate how a blind, mindless, unguided process can produce biological information like that found in DNA. Yet here we have purpose, sight, and foresight. Unfortunately for the Dawkinites, it only gets worse. In contrast to him saying natural selection has no purpose in mind, the target phrase is a highly specified goal. How can he possibly justify the target phrase, which the illustration smuggles in through the back door? In fact, the target phrase would have to be present in the cell for the comparison to be made by the boss monkey. So the information he claims to be generating by natural selection is already present in the cell before the selection process starts. Circular reasoning is true because circular reasoning is true. Quite frankly, there only appear to be a few possible conclusions. Either Professor Dawkins has made a sophomoric error, is deluded by his emotional need for Darwinism to be true, or he is being deliberately deceptive. I'll let you decide.